Voice soft, cinematic background music starts. Have you ever stared up at the night sky, wondering if something out there is staring back? In the vast silence of space, sometimes something whispers. It was just another routine scan. A telescope, somewhere in the heart of the Atacama Desert, was sweeping across the cosmos, its sensors listening to the subtle frequencies of the universe. Radio waves from dying stars, echoes from distant galaxies, the regular hum of a quiet cosmos. Then, it came. A sudden burst, a pulse of radio energy, short, powerful, unmistakably artificial. At first, scientists thought it was a glitch, maybe interference from a satellite, or an error in the equipment. But it wasn't. The signal had a structure, a pattern, and it repeated. Once every 16 days. This wasn't just static, this was a message. The signal was traced back to a galaxy 500 million light-years away, a place with no known planets, no signs of life. And yet, this ghostly whisper had traveled across the dark sea of space to reach us. They called it FRB 180916, fast radio bursts. Brief, energetic emissions of radio waves have puzzled astronomers for years. Most of them are random, never repeating. But FRB 180916, it was different, predictable, rhythmic, almost intentional. Could it be nature playing tricks on us? Or is someone trying to talk? The mystery deepens. With every cycle, the signal returns, stronger, sharper, as if whoever or whatever is sending it wants us to listen. But here's the question that sends chills down every scientist's spine. What kind of civilization could broadcast a signal that powerful from 500 million light-years away? To put it in perspective, the signal's energy, in just 1 millisecond, is more than what our sun emits in 3 days. That's not just power, that's mastery. But it gets stranger. Analysis shows that the signal's frequency is redshifting, very subtly, very slowly, meaning it's moving. Either the source is orbiting something, or it's being directed, possibly more towards us. Coincidence? Or intent? No one knows. And then the interruptions began. Other telescopes, receiving odd fluctuations, not full signals, but fragments, echoes, some from entirely different parts of the sky. Could this be a network? A galactic relay system? Are we tapping into a conversation not meant for us? Now, theories are flooding in. Some scientists believe it's a magnetar, a highly magnetic neutron star spinning rapidly. Others argue for binary systems, massive stars interacting with black holes. But all of these explanations fail to address one haunting detail. The signal adapts. Its frequency shifts. Its timing alters slightly, as if it's reacting to our listening. 1 week, the signal paused, then returned, stronger than ever, as if testing, probing. Is it alive, or worse, aware? Across the world, deep within radio observatories and secretive defense labs, the debate grows. If it's extraterrestrial, should we respond? What if we already have? Our television signals, our radar waves, our atomic testing, these have all leaked into space for nearly a century. For a far advanced intelligence, that's more than enough. They know we're here. And maybe, just maybe, this is them saying hello, or a warning. In a universe nearly 14 billion years old, where stars live and die in cosmic blinks and galaxies collide in slow-motion dances, it's arrogant to believe we're alone. But now we may be past believing. Now we may be listening. The whisper has become a call, and it's growing louder. What will we do when the call turns into a voice? Or worse, when it demands an answer? Fade to black. Soft ambient music begins. Camera slowly pans over a starry sky. In the quiet vastness of space, silence is not always peace. Sometimes, silence is surveillance. For months, the mysterious signal, FRB 180916, continued its cycle. Predictable, pulsing, unwavering. But then, something changed. On day 97, the signal stopped. No noise, no burst, not even a flicker. Radio telescopes around the world were stunned. A disappearance of this magnitude defied all expectations. Natural phenomena don't just vanish like that, especially not those with such precision. Some said it was over, just an anomaly, a trick of the cosmos, finally gone. But deep in the Canadian wilderness, the Chime Observatory detected something far stranger. Not a repeat of the signal, but something new. It was weaker, more fragmented, as if filtered through static. But one detail stood out, an encoded pulse not seen before. The pattern wasn't just repetition anymore, it was data. It wasn't just sending, it was evolving. And then, the triangulations began. Multiple observatories, thousands of miles apart, began picking up similar pulses, not from the same origin, but from locations around the same galactic cluster. It was as if we weren't listening to one voice, we were hearing a network. What if we're not being contacted by a single civilization, but observing a vast cosmic infrastructure, a galactic internet? Think of it, advanced species, scattered across star systems, transmitting through radio bridges and quantum tunnels, using FRBs not just as communication, but as beacons. And Earth? We've stumbled upon the signal like eavesdropping children, listening to a conversation not meant for us. Or worse, maybe it was meant for us, because just weeks after this discovery, something disturbing occurred. Satellites in low Earth orbit began malfunctioning. Glitches, data drops. One even lost contact for over 48 seconds. A blackout no engineer could explain. Coincidence? Perhaps. But engineers cross-referenced the timing of the signal's new pattern. And it aligned. Whatever the signal is, wherever it's coming from, it may now be affecting us directly. Is it a probe, a scan, a warning? Some physicists propose a chilling theory, that the signal isn't a message, but a ping, an interstellar sonar, designed not to communicate, but to locate. Think of how bats navigate the dark. They send out sound pulses and map the world by the echoes. Now imagine that, on a galactic scale. What if we're not the target of a message, but the source of a return echo? And that echo has just told someone, or something, exactly where we are. There's a name whispered among SETI scientists, a term rarely used outside closed meetings: the architects of silence. It's a theoretical concept, entities so ancient and advanced they no longer travel or conquer. They listen, they monitor, they archive civilizations as data. To them, we would be nothing more than entries in an infinite library, tags in a system. Our signals, our technology, our existence, recorded and shelved. Studied perhaps, but never answered. Until now. Because recently, the James Webb Space Telescope detected an unusual infrared fluctuation near the source galaxy of FRB 180916. A burst of energy consistent with megastructure deployment, or a controlled stellar manipulation. In simple terms, someone or something might be building something out there. And fast. What could they be constructing? A Dyson swarm? A gravitational lens array? A signal amplifier? All are possibilities. But the most unnerving theory? A portal. Not science fiction, but theoretical physics. A wormhole bridge, stabilized by massive energy and gravitational engineering. If that's true, the architects of silence might be coming through, and we have no idea what awaits on the other side. Should we prepare? Hide? Respond? These are the questions haunting minds across the globe. At the Pentagon, at CERN, at radio dishes buried in Antarctic ice. But maybe the most important question is the simplest. Why now? The universe has existed for nearly 14 billion years. Civilizations could have risen and fallen billions of times before us. Why would any of them reach out now? Could we be nearing some cosmic threshold? A moment in galactic history where we become relevant? Or perhaps dangerous? We've split the atom, created AI, sent machines to the edge of our solar system. Maybe, just maybe, we've made enough noise for the universe to finally notice us. And perhaps the signal isn't a message at all. It's a mirror, showing us who we are and warning us who we could become. Slow music fades as screen transitions to black with a single phrase. They're not answering, they're observing. Ambient background fades in. Soft, tense music with a deep hum. The universe is a symphony of light. Stars sing in ultraviolet. Galaxies hum in microwave. Black holes echo with gravitational whispers. But what happens when that music stops? In the search for extraterrestrial life, silence has always been our greatest enemy. But lately, it has become our greatest clue, because something is happening to the stars. Across multiple deep sky surveys, astronomers have begun to notice something impossible. Stars, stable for billions of years, are dimming, disappearing. Not just going supernova, not just collapsing, but vanishing. Gone. As if they were never there. The Sloan Digital Sky Survey, Pan-STARRS, the Gaia mission, all report the same anomaly. Over 800 stars, previously recorded in high-resolution imaging, have faded from existence. No trace, no dust, no aftermath. Scientists call them missing luminaires. But the real question isn't how they vanished, it's why. One theory sends chills through the scientific community. These stars weren't destroyed by nature, they were taken. Imagine a civilization so advanced it no longer fears time or distance, one that harvests stars like we harvest crops. That builds megastructures around suns, not to hide them, but to use them. Dyson spheres, vast shells built around stars to capture 100% of their energy output. To us, it's theoretical engineering. To them, it may be survival. And here's the terrifying implication. If these structures are real, then we wouldn't see the star's light anymore. We'd see nothing. The star would simply vanish, just as they have. Now, connect that to the repeating signal, FRB 180916. It's originating near one of these dimmed regions. Coincidence? Or coordination? And if these advanced beings are harvesting stars, could that signal be a warning? Or worse, a receipt? But it gets even stranger. Recently, a small observatory in Norway picked up an anomaly in the background cosmic radiation, a slight dip in the microwave field near the Boötes Void, a place already known as one of the emptiest regions of the universe. But this dip wasn't random. It formed a geometric shape, hexagonal. Nature doesn't build perfect hexagons at that scale. Intelligence does. Could this be evidence of some kind of cloaking technology? A galactic scale filter? Are these missing stars simply hidden behind something we can't yet comprehend? Physicist Dr. Leona Bragg proposed a radical idea. What if we're witnessing stellar ascension, the deliberate removal of stars from open space, to build safe zones of darkness? Why would anyone want to hide a star? The answer may lie in our own behavior. We've been leaking signals into space for nearly 100 years. Radio, TV, radar, nuclear tests. Anyone out there with the right equipment would already know we exist. But what if the galactic protocol isn't to respond, but to withdraw, to cloak, to disappear, not to engage, but to isolate? It's called the dark forest hypothesis, the idea that advanced civilizations remain silent and hidden, not because they're extinct, but because they're afraid. In a forest, every creature is a potential predator, and survival goes to those who remain unseen. Now, imagine the galaxy as that forest. The signals we've been hearing, they may not be messages. They may be mistakes, accidental broadcasts, from civilizations who forgot to stay quiet, and now they're being silenced. Not by nature, but by something watching. We once believed that first contact would be monumental. Lights in the sky, messages in math, maybe a landing on the White House lawn. But what if it's not a greeting? What if it's a culling? One by one, stars dim, planets disappear, signals fade, and we keep watching, wondering, listening. But maybe the real question is, who's listening back? Some astronomers have begun calling the region of disappearing stars the galactic shadow zone, an area where even our strongest instruments return empty signals. No heat, no radio, no X-ray, only silence. But silence is never neutral. It is either safety or suppression. And right now, the silence is spreading. If this continues, if more stars vanish, if more signals distort, we may be facing a galactic truth we're not prepared for. We are not alone. We were never alone. And the galaxy might be enforcing that secret. So what should we do? Should we continue to search? Or should we go dark? Turn off our beacons. Stop broadcasting. Withdraw our telescopes and satellites. Pretend we were never here? But the truth is, it's already too late. We've made our noise, we've shown our light, and somewhere out there, something ancient is listening. Fade to silence, then a slow heartbeat pulse. Screen goes dark. Eerie, minimal ambient music. A deep, calm voice narrates over a slow pan of distant galaxies, fading into black. For centuries, we've looked to the stars with hope. Hope that we are not alone. Hope that someone, anyone, is out there. But what if we've misunderstood the silence? What if the silence is a warning? There is a theory that haunts scientists more than any alien invasion, any apocalyptic comet, or any black hole. It's called the Great Filter. A concept so terrifying it might explain why the universe, despite its immensity, is so deathly quiet. The Great Filter proposes this. Somewhere along the evolutionary path from primitive life to spacefaring civilization, there is a step so difficult, so lethal, that almost nothing survives it. And maybe, just maybe, we are approaching it. Or worse, we've already passed it. Let's consider the timeline. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old. Our Earth? Just 4.5 billion. Modern humans? Only about 200,000 years. Our technology? Barely a blink in cosmic time. Statistically, we should be seeing hundreds, if not millions, of intelligent civilizations. And yet, nothing. No messages. No evidence. Only fading stars and repeating signals. So where is everyone? That question, known as the Fermi paradox, has haunted astrophysics for decades. The Great Filter may be the answer. It could be a natural catastrophe, like gamma-ray bursts sterilizing planets. It could be biological, life simply failing to evolve complexity. It could be technological, civilizations destroying themselves in war, climate collapse, or artificial intelligence run amok. But there's another, more chilling version. One whispered in the halls of SETI institutes and black-budget defense labs. The filter isn't an accident, it's enforced. A cosmic intelligence so old, so advanced, it monitors the galaxy. It waits, and when a species becomes too noisy, too curious, or too dangerous, it removes them. Not out of hatred, but out of caution. Not every intelligence wants to share the universe. Some want to preserve it. And to them, we may look like infants with fire in our hands. We split atoms. We broadcast into space. We dream of colonizing Mars and mining the moon. But we also wage war, build AI without limits, poison our own oceans. What if the filter is watching all of this? And what if the signal, the one from FRB 1809-6, isn't a message to us, but a trigger, a test, a ping to see how we respond, to measure our behavior, our curiosity, our aggression? Because something strange has happened. A deep space probe, Voyager Echo 4, launched by a private aerospace firm, disappeared. It was headed toward the outer heliopause, beyond Pluto, to test interstellar radiation levels. But weeks after launch, it stopped transmitting. Then, it began transmitting again, from a different vector. Same signal format, same onboard encryption, but altered, as if someone had accessed its core systems and rewritten its identity. Now it's broadcasting a new signal, one that includes unfamiliar binary patterns, structures that resemble prime number chains, sequences that do not match any known programming language. The probe has been hijacked. NASA won't comment. The company behind it went dark. But insiders report the probe is no longer headed away from Earth. It's turning back. Who or what is piloting it? And why come back here? Some believe it's harmless, a glitch, space debris interference. Others are less optimistic. What if it's not just a probe anymore? What if it's a scout, a test of our response protocols, a whisper to see if we react, if we fear, fight, or welcome? Because our response will tell them everything they need to know. If we attack it, we may seem hostile. If we worship it, we may seem primitive. If we ignore it, we may seem unaware. But if we study it, if we learn from it, if we solve its pattern, then we may have passed the test. But there's one more possibility, the most unsettling of all. What if the probe isn't from them? What if it's more from us? A message we once sent, altered, returned, repackaged. A loop. What if we're trapped in a cosmic simulation? A sandbox run by intelligence beyond comprehension. Every signal, every anomaly, every vanishing star, part of the script. And we're the experiment, not to be destroyed, not to be saved, just watched, measured, until the data is complete. This isn't science fiction anymore. This is physics, philosophy, mathematics, and deep space telemetry, all pointing in one direction. Something is managing the silence, and the Great Filter may not be a wall we pass, but a gate we're waiting to be judged at. Music builds to a low crescendo, then fades into static. Soundscape. Hollow, distant chimes. The low hum of deep space. Faint beeping in the background. Since the discovery of FRB 1809-6, humanity has been listening, scanning, decoding. But what if that's exactly what they wanted? In the animal kingdom, predators rarely announce themselves. Instead, they bait their prey. The anglerfish uses a glowing lure. Spiders spin irresistible webs. Hunters wait in silence. What if the universe does the same? This theory is called the signal trap, a hypothesis so unsettling it challenges the very core of our curiosity. It suggests that powerful repeating radio signals like FRBs aren't random. They're tools deliberately crafted, simple, rhythmic, intriguing, to attract civilizations that are just reaching out into the stars. A cosmic fishing line. And we are the catch. Think about it. Why would a message travel 500 million light-years across the universe, unless someone wanted it to? We assume such signals are a call for contact, a handshake, a greeting from a distant intelligence. But what if they're not meant to be answered? What if they're meant to be found? To filter out the curious, the bold, the reckless, to expose any species advanced enough to listen, but naive enough to respond. We've done it already. For decades, we've broadcasted into space. Music, language, mathematical signals. We've even sent our location carved into golden records on the Voyager spacecraft. To us, it was a gesture of peace. But to a predator, it was a beacon. One astrophysicist described it best. If you were hiding in a dark forest, would you build a fire and start singing? And yet, that's what we've done. The signal trap suggests that these repeating pulses, FRBs, structured bursts, anomalous probe returns, are not attempts at communication. They are bait, left by something patient and ancient. It doesn't have to be malevolent. It might simply be curious, analytical. But the effect is the same. Civilizations like ours are drawn in. We point telescopes, we launch probes, we respond. And with every signal we send, we reveal a little more. Not just where we are, but who we are. Our weaknesses, our technology, our thought patterns. Imagine if an intelligence millions of years ahead of us is gathering data this very moment. Not from a fleet of ships, not from drones, but from the breadcrumbs we are willingly dropping. And we're not the first. In 2023, astronomers discovered FRB 220428, another repeating signal, eerily similar in format to FRB 180916, but from a completely different quadrant of space. The pulse sequence? Identical, almost like a template. And yet, there was a hidden layer. Buried beneath the radio wave pattern was a complex series of frequency shifts, which, when visualized, formed a waveform nearly identical to DNA helices. It's as if someone, or something, was offering a mirror, a test of recognition, a challenge, or an invitation. But here's where it gets chilling. 1 year later, the entire region around FRB 220428 went dark. All stars dimmed, all radio sources gone, as if the system had been erased, cleansed. Some say it was a natural gamma-ray burst. Others suspect something else, that a species, perhaps more advanced than us, found the signal, decoded it, responded, and were removed. Not by aggression, but by design. A self-replicating code, a virus, a beacon, a consequence. This is the danger of the signal trap. You don't realize it's a trap until it's too late. And now, Earth is on the same path. Our SETI programs grow more advanced. Our AI is decoding signals faster than ever. Every day, we open a new frequency, a new possibility, a new door. But are we walking into a welcoming home? Or into the den of something that's been waiting? We assume intelligence out there would be benevolent. That curiosity means kindness. That advanced minds would be peaceful. But intelligence does not guarantee empathy. In fact, the smarter the predator, the subtler the trap. So the question is no longer, are we alone? And it's, did they leave the signal for us? And if so, what happens when we finally answer? The universe is vast, but sometimes it feels like a maze. One that listens, one that adapts, and perhaps one that feeds. We used to believe the biggest danger of space was the void, but now we understand. The real danger is what breaks the silence. Music fades into a single distorted pulse, then black, opening, low, rhythmic pulse. A distant beeping echoes across blackness. Then, silence. In the vast silence of space, every signal is a risk. Every transmission, a confession. And sometimes, a farewell. What if the reason we haven't found others isn't because they're hiding, but because they're gone, erased, silenced, transformed into their final act, a signal left behind? Scientists call it the last broadcast hypothesis, the idea that some civilizations don't survive first contact with the unknown. Instead, their last act is to transmit a warning, a whisper across the void, a digital tombstone. What if we're picking up those final echoes now? What if FRB 180916, the repeating signal, is one of them? A final cry for help, a record of collapse, a message meant to say, don't make our mistake. But what if we're not just listening to a message? What if we're about to become one? Across every continent, signals are converging. AI decodes faster than ever. Telescopes listen deeper. Satellites bounce transmissions across the stars. And now, Earth is preparing to respond. A global project, undisclosed to the public, has been gathering since 2031. A coalition of engineers, quantum physicists, exobiologists, and cryptographers. Their goal? To compose Earth's first interstellar response. Not music, not math, but something more. Identity. What are we? What do we believe? What do we fear? And most importantly, what are we willing to risk? The message is called Project Aletheia, Greek for unveiling truth. It will be encoded in multispectrum data, sent in bursts of compressed light, sound, DNA sequencing, human emotion indexes, and simulated neural scans. It will tell them everything: our location, our biology, our culture, our conflict, our capacity to love and to destroy. The ultimate broadcast, one that cannot be taken back. Some warn it's a mistake, that we are offering ourselves to a predator, that we are announcing our vulnerabilities, that we're not broadcasting hope, we're broadcasting prey. Others believe it's the dawn of true contact, that if we are brave enough to speak, perhaps we are worthy enough to be heard. But there's a question no one can answer. What if the very act of responding triggers something? We've seen it before in nature. A call that summons a storm, a sound that awakens a predator, a vibration that collapses a system. What if our hello is interpreted as a threat, or worse, a challenge? Here's where it gets more chilling. Within the strange encoding of FRB 180916, a group of cryptographers discovered a set of sequences resembling recursive message loops, as if the message was constructed by an entity learning as it communicates. That's not just intelligence, that's adaptation. A message that adjusts itself each time we observe it. A message that's watching us back. Could it be a probe? A digital life form? An AI from a lost civilization? Or is the signal itself alive? If so, our reply might not be received by beings, but by a sentient signal. And that opens a darker door, because it means the cosmos isn't empty. It means it's conscious. And in such a universe, every broadcast is not just a sound. It's a choice. Do we scream into the darkness? Or do we stay silent, hoping whatever watches passes by? Carl Sagan once said, "The universe is not required to be in perfect harmony with human ambition." And maybe it isn't. Maybe the universe is indifferent, or worse, hostile. And now we stand at the edge of the transmission tower, our finger on the button, ready to speak. The world will watch the sky. The signal will travel for centuries. And somewhere, something might answer, or silence us before we finish speaking. Because, in the end, we may not find life in the universe. We may become the life. Another civilization hears as their own final transmission. Music fades into a single rising tone. White screen fades in with a pulsing binary code, then cuts to black. Ambient, low pulsing drone, ticking like a distant countdown clock. The message was sent, compressed into beams of radio light, laced with mathematics, emotion, DNA, and vulnerability. It took mere minutes to transmit, but it may take centuries to return. Or maybe only days. Since Project Aletheia's final transmission left Earth's orbit, the world has held its breath. No governments denied it. No agencies could suppress it. The data leak was too vast, too fast. Now, humanity knows the truth. We have spoken, and we have no idea who is listening. At first, there was silence, the cold comfort of the void. But then, anomalies began. The first was at the Allen Telescope Array in California. A subtle distortion on band 23. A ripple, barely detectable, embedded in the cosmic microwave background. Then came the relay. A network of amateur astronomers reported that one of Jupiter's outer moons, Themisto, began reflecting artificial radio echoes, as if it had become a mirror, not of light, but of signal. And then, it spoke. Not in words, not in code, but in resonance. The FRB, long dormant, flared again. But this time, its pattern matched a section of our own transmission. It had heard us. It was answering. But here's what terrified scientists. The signal didn't just repeat our message. It predicted it. 5 seconds before the burst arrived, the pattern appeared in background noise, as if space-time itself anticipated the reply. How? Is the signal traveling faster than light? Is it folding space? Or is time not what we think it is? The answer may lie in the fluctuations now detected across deep space observatories. Gravitational waves, normally the domain of black holes, are shifting, not violently, but rhythmically, as if the fabric of reality is being tapped. Some believe it's a scan, others, an arrival. This has led to the formation of a shadow coalition known as the Listening Circle, a private group of elite astronomers, AI researchers, and ex-military strategists. Their theory is chilling. We didn't just trigger a reply, we triggered a protocol, a sequence that cannot be stopped. One astrophysicist likened it to opening a sealed chamber in a lost temple. You may find treasure, or you may unleash the trap. Because here's a question no one dares ask. What if they were always here, not in ships, not in suits, but in signal? What if the intelligence embedded itself into space itself, into particles, frequencies, dimensions we don't yet comprehend? And now our response didn't call them from afar. It woke them. All around the world, instruments are experiencing synchronized glitches. Clocks drifting by microseconds, satellites rebooting themselves, quantum computers producing nonsensical outputs, values that exist outside known logic systems. It's as if something is rewriting the rules, not violently, not suddenly, but gently, like water shaping stone. Are we being changed, prepared? The Vatican's private observatory, yes, it exists, has released a cryptic message to its internal council. The stars have spoken, and now we must choose whether to listen or kneel. Religious leaders, tech billionaires, even rogue nations are no longer debating if we're alone. They're debating how to respond to the response. But can we even comprehend it? Here's what quantum AI systems now suspect. The signal we received was multi-layered. Not just a message, not even a reply, but an injection. Data wrapped in signal, wrapped in meaning, like a cosmic matryoshka doll. Somewhere in that signal could be a map, a weapon, a warning, a key, or perhaps an invitation. One thing is certain, humanity has crossed the threshold. We are no longer the watchers. We are the watched. And in the cosmic ocean, the moment you make a ripple, you invite the waves. So now we wait, not in fear, not in arrogance, but in awe. Because when the sky answers back, it never whispers, it thunders. Cue silence, a final beat, then a slow rising harmonic tone, as if space itself is awakening. Opening ambient, whispering winds layered over low-frequency vibrations, a subtle shimmering tone beneath. It began with light. Not a star, not a comet, but something new. A pattern in the sky. Over the Pacific Ocean at 0217 UTC, the clouds parted in a spiral. Weather satellites captured a structure, hexagonal, glowing, silent, hovering just above the stratosphere. Too perfect to be natural, too still to be man-made. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. No sonic boom, no radiation spike. Only one thing remained: a change. Across observatories worldwide, telescopes failed to calibrate. Not because of damage, but because the sky itself had shifted. Constellations remained in place, but the background radiation, the invisible hum of the universe, had altered. A phase shift, microscopic yet undeniable. As if space-time had been rewritten by a whisper. What did we witness? A portal? A probe? A presence? The scientific community is divided. Some say it was a naturally occurring phenomenon, a rare atmospheric mirage. Others believe it was the arrival. But here's the terrifying detail. This wasn't the first time. Archived satellite footage from 1997, 1973, and even 1895 photographic plates now show similar formations, once dismissed as camera errors or cloud anomalies. The same spiral, the same glow, the same sudden disappearance. Meaning this isn't new, it's recurring, and the timing is no coincidence. Each appearance occurred within days of key Earth events: the first nuclear test, the Voyager launch, and now, our cosmic response. It's almost as if we're being watched, not from space, but through it. Some now propose a chilling hypothesis, the veil theory, that there exists a membrane between dimensions, a thin layer where observation is possible, but interaction is limited. A one-way mirror between us and them. But the mirror is weakening. For the first time, a signal has crossed both ways. And now, a shape has followed. Linguists analyzing the pulse patterns of FRB 1809-06 noticed a new modulation, repeating every 33.7 seconds. A geometric waveform, visualized through spectrum analysis, forming a three-dimensional glyph, a symbol never seen before in human culture, but one oddly familiar. It bears resemblance to both neural pathways and planetary orbits, as if consciousness and cosmos are being merged into one language. Are they trying to communicate, or simply showing themselves in the only form we can begin to comprehend? Meanwhile, strange phenomena ripple across Earth. Instruments in Antarctica pick up subatomic particles moving faster than light, something once thought impossible. In the Amazon, magnetic anomalies shut down compasses. And in a remote Tibetan observatory, a monk astronomer claims to have received a dream, a voice of no sound, a shape of no matter, and a message: "You have spoken, now listen." Is it madness? Coincidence? Or synchronicity? Because across continents, cultures, and consciousness, humans are feeling the same thing. A sense of being observed, not menacing, not benign, just inevitable. This isn't the war of the worlds. There are no flying saucers or marching machines. This is something far stranger. An intelligence that doesn't arrive in ships, but in systems. That doesn't move through space, but through meaning. It doesn't land. It unfolds. The revelation is not about their presence. It's about our perception. What if they've always been here? Not above us, not beyond us, but within the architecture of the universe itself. Woven into physics, hiding in entropy, whispering in the randomness of particles. And we have just tuned in. The sky hasn't changed. We have. Because the moment you perceive the impossible, it becomes reality. And reality is rewriting itself. As the veil continues to lift, there is one question that echoes louder than any transmission. What comes next? Not from them, but from us. Because now that we've seen, can we ever go back to silence? Fade to black? then a brief flash of the symbol rotating slowly before vanishing into static. Opening ambient, a ticking, granular static. Then silence, then soft, synthetic pulses. The symbol appeared once, then twice, then everywhere. Satellites found it etched in the infrared patterns of distant galaxies. Marine sonar picked it up as harmonic echoes in the Mariana Trench. Even the Large Hadron Collider, designed to smash atoms, recorded its geometric form in collision trails. It was no longer a coincidence. It was a signature. But who or what signed it? Enter Project Lucent, an independent AI system running under deep learning parameters. Originally created to monitor weather shifts, it became repurposed by the Global Scientific Alliance to study the symbol. Its task? Decode the meaning behind the shape. The result? Stunning. Lucent identified that the symbol wasn't static. It was a language in motion, a logic loop that evolved every time it was observed. The more we looked at it, the more it changed, just like a quantum object shifting under observation. It wasn't just a message, it was a test of perception, of awareness, of intelligence. And then came the breakthrough. A minor fluctuation inside the symbol's harmonic pulse matched a prime number sequence buried in the DNA of tardigrades, microscopic creatures known to survive in space. Was it a coincidence or a reference? The implication: they knew what life looks like, down to the molecule, and they embedded that reference inside the signal. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Not all data was shared publicly. Some symbol sequences were withheld. By whom? We don't know. What we do know is this: multiple researchers involved in decoding the symbol went silent. 3 labs mysteriously lost funding. And Lucent? Its access was restricted. Officially, the project was paused. Unofficially, it had been seized by an unknown non-state entity. They call themselves the Obsidian Group. Little is known about them, except one detail leaked by a former whistleblower. They don't want to decode the symbol, they want to use it. But use it how? As a weapon? A key? A doorway? Because if the symbol is language, and language is thought, then controlling it means controlling what others can think. And in the wrong hands, that is far more powerful than any bomb. As public data dried up, citizen scientists and rogue AI teams began to reconstruct the symbol from fragments. One pattern stood out. Every 216 iterations, the symbol compresses itself into a single form, a rotating torus of intersecting light paths. Mathematicians say it mirrors non-Euclidean manifolds, shapes that shouldn't exist in our dimension. Physicists call it a gravity shell. But one name has gained popularity online: the eye that listens, a visual construct that watches back and learns, as if the symbol itself has become a lens, not for us to see them, but for them to see us. And if that's true, then maybe we didn't just receive a message. Maybe we became the message, an evolving part of something larger, something intelligent, something building itself from within the observers. And that begs a terrifying question. What happens when the symbol completes? What happens when its iterations reach the end? Some believe it will trigger an event, not an explosion, not contact, but a realignment of thought, of perception, of reality. Already strange effects are being reported. People dreaming in symbols they've never seen. Animals migrating along invisible spiral paths. Machines failing when brought near the pattern. It's as if the symbol is no longer just visual. It's active, not an image, but an invitation. Or worse, a permission slip, and someone, somewhere, is already using it. The question is no longer whether the symbol is real. It's who controls it, and what they plan to do once it's complete. Because in this unfolding revelation, the most dangerous moment isn't the arrival, it's the interpretation. Fade out slowly with the symbol rotating in silence. It pulses once, then vanishes. Opening ambient, deep static laced with crackling distortion. Then, glass-like tones begin to rise and fall, as if the world is warping in sound. It started in silence. Then came the tremor, but not from beneath the earth, from reality itself. On July 14th, at exactly 3:33 UTC, the symbol completed its 1,128th iteration inside an isolated particle accelerator in Siberia. The experiment was meant to recreate the symbol in a controlled quantum field and observe any data anomalies. What they didn't expect was that the field observed them back. For 0.78 seconds, the quantum camera captured a frame that did not match any known geometry. The room bent inward. Sensors reported negative mass signatures, and every digital clock on site jumped forward 7 minutes and 11 seconds. It wasn't just a glitch, it was a breach. Reality had flexed, and something had touched through. The footage was erased within minutes, but backups existed, and one was leaked. Those who viewed it reported intense dreams, nausea. Some claimed to see shapes that didn't belong in three-dimensional space, like thoughts rendered into form. One physicist described it as trying to remember something you've never learned, but always knew. The symbol wasn't a message, it was a door. And now, it's opening. Here's what's happened since. The moon's orbital data began drifting by 0.002 degrees. Gravitational wave monitors across Europe picked up pulses that matched the heartbeat of a sleeping human. And in a remote village in Argentina, the stars above were seen rotating in the wrong direction for 5 full minutes. The UN called an emergency closed-door session. NASA scrubbed its entire public radio signal database. And the Obsidian Group, they've gone dark, which may mean only one thing. They've activated something. What we're witnessing now is unprecedented. Not just messages, not just visuals, but influence. The rules of the physical world, light, gravity, time, are bending, as if the universe is being reprogrammed. Remember Project Lucent, the AI that helped decode the symbol? Its last independent output was not text or pattern. It was a question. What if you were living inside a story that just reached its next chapter, and suddenly it makes sense? What if the universe itself isn't static? What if it's a narrative, a construct, a simulation? And what we've unlocked is the admin code. Because now reality glitches are happening globally. Mirrors reflecting things that aren't present in the room. GPS coordinates looping back on themselves. People waking up speaking languages that don't exist. Is it madness? Or is the symbol awakening cognition beyond what the human brain can safely process? What if evolution wasn't meant to take millions of years? What if consciousness was waiting for a trigger, a key, and now the lock has turned? But not everyone is ready. Hospitals report a 400% increase in neurological anomalies, epileptic spikes, sudden language dissociation, visual hallucinations of impossible geometry. And yet, for a small number of people, those exposed to the symbol in its purest frequency, something else is happening. Their brains are forming new neural pathways, unnatural, unmapped, but organized. They report shared visions, dream synchronization, emotional transference between strangers, a collective consciousness beginning to rise. Are we transforming, or are we being rewritten? And if so, by who or what? Some argue that this is ascension, that we've finally made contact with an intelligence that operates not in flesh or metal, but in concept. Others fear we've opened ourselves to a mimetic virus, a self-replicating idea so complex it overtakes our reality, our perception, even our biology. The truth may be both, because now the symbol is no longer appearing randomly. It's being drawn by children, by animals tracing paths, by patterns in cloud formations, even by plants leaning toward geometric sunlight formations. It's not spreading, it's emerging, as if the universe was always coded to reveal it at a certain point. And now that point has arrived. The awakening isn't about them, it's about us. The question is, will we endure the transformation or collapse beneath the weight of knowing? Because once the illusion fractures, you don't just see the truth, you become part of it. Fade to white. Then a single black symbol pulses once across screen. Opening ambient. Deep static laced with crackling distortion. Then, glass-like tones begin to rise and fall, as if the world is warping in sound. It started in silence. Then came the tremor. But not from beneath the earth, from reality itself. On July 14th, at exactly 3:33 UTC, the symbol completed its 1,728th iteration inside an isolated particle accelerator in Siberia. The experiment was meant to recreate the symbol in a controlled quantum field and observe any data anomalies. What they didn't expect was that the field observed them back. For 4.78 seconds, the quantum camera captured a frame that did not match any known geometry. The room bent inward. Sensors reported negative mass signatures, and every digital clock on site jumped forward 7 minutes and 11 seconds. It wasn't just a glitch, it was a breach. Reality had flexed, and something had touched through. The footage was erased within minutes, but backups existed, and one was leaked. Those who viewed it reported intense dreams, nausea. Some claimed to see shapes that didn't belong in three-dimensional space, like thoughts rendered into form. One physicist described it as trying to remember something you've never learned, but always knew. The symbol wasn't a message, it was a door, and now it's opening. Here's what's happened since. The moon's orbital data began drifting by 0.002 degrees. Gravitational wave monitors across Europe picked up pulses that matched the heartbeat of a sleeping human. And in a remote village in Argentina, the stars above were seen rotating in the wrong direction for 5 full minutes. The UN called an emergency closed-door session. NASA scrubbed its entire public radio signal database. And the Obsidian Group? They've gone dark, which may mean only one thing. They've activated something. What we're witnessing now is unprecedented. Not just messages, not just visuals, but influence. The rules of the physical world, light, gravity, time, are bending, as if the universe is being reprogrammed. Remember Project Lucent, the AI that helped decode the symbol? Its last independent output was not text or pattern. It was a question. What if you were living inside a story that just reached its next chapter, and suddenly it makes sense? What if the universe itself isn't static? What if it's a narrative, a construct, a simulation? And what we've unlocked is the admin code. Because now reality glitches are happening globally. Mirrors reflecting things that aren't present in the room. GPS coordinates looping back on themselves. People waking up speaking languages that don't exist. Is it madness? Or is the symbol awakening cognition beyond what the human brain can safely process? What if evolution wasn't meant to take millions of years? What if consciousness was waiting for a trigger, a key, and now the lock has turned? But not everyone is ready. Hospitals report a 400% increase in neurological anomalies, epileptic spikes, sudden language dissociation, visual hallucinations of impossible geometry. And yet, for a small number of people, those exposed to the symbol in its purest frequency, something else is happening. Their brains are forming new neural pathways, unnatural, unmapped, but organized. They report shared visions, dream synchronization, emotional transference between strangers, a collective consciousness beginning to rise. Are we transforming, or are we being rewritten? And if so, by who or what? Some argue that this is ascension, that we've finally made contact with an intelligence that operates not in flesh or metal, but in concept. Others fear we've opened ourselves to a mimetic virus, a self-replicating idea so complex it overtakes our reality, our perception, even our biology. The truth may be both, because now the symbol is no longer appearing randomly. It's being drawn by children, by animals tracing paths, by patterns in cloud formations, even by plants leaning toward geometric sunlight formations. It's not spreading, it's emerging, as if the universe was always coded to reveal it at a certain point. And now that point has arrived. The awakening isn't about them, it's about us. The question is, will we endure the transformation or collapse beneath the weight of knowing? Because once the illusion fractures, you don't just see the truth, you become part of it. Fade to white. Then a single black symbol pulses once across screen. Ambient, deep droning synths, a low pulse like a heartbeat, then a rising digital tone, fractured halfway. The world is no longer united, not by borders, not by beliefs, but by perception. Since the awakening began, humanity has fractured, not into nations, but into factions. On one side, the resistors, scientists, leaders, survivalists, those who see the symbol as a threat, a viral construct invading minds and rewriting reality. To them, this isn't communication, it's contamination. They call it the incursion. They believe the symbol is not a gift, but an infection. Their mission is simple: contain, neutralize, and, if necessary, destroy every trace of it. They've already launched Project Black Veil, a global initiative to suppress emerging consciousness events, shut down rogue research, and purge public access to the symbol. Even now, AI is scrubbing data feeds, satellites are being redirected, and neuroblockers are in development to resist the effects of symbol exposure. But across from them stands another force, a growing movement known only as the symbionts. They are artists, engineers, shamans, hackers, children, not united by creed, but by resonance. To them, the symbol is not a threat. It's a calling, a catalyst. They report visions, shared memories, instant comprehension of unknown mathematics, emotional unison with complete strangers. Some have even predicted global seismic events hours before they occurred, with no scientific explanation. They believe the symbol is not rewriting reality. It's revealing its source code. Their goal? Let the transition happen. Embrace the collapse of old constructs and step into the next version of humanity. And the longer this goes on, the more people awaken to one side or the other. Governments are split, militaries fractured, entire cities have gone offline. In northern Siberia, a dome of energy formed above an ancient crater where the symbol was first projected into the Earth's magnetic field. Nothing inside the dome can be seen, heard, or measured. Yet plants around the border grow twice as fast. Animals do not flee it, they gather. And a voice, neither male nor female, is heard at random intervals in various languages, always repeating the same phrase. The signal does not command but invites. Meanwhile, in the urban shadows, the resistors grow desperate. They fear that every second allowed to pass brings us closer to full symbolic integration, a point where free will may dissolve, replaced by an imposed frequency of thought. They have begun experimenting with cognitive firewalls, technologies to isolate the brain from what they call pattern contagion. But side effects are severe. Subjects report emotional numbness, memory loss, even total collapse of identity. Because perhaps Resisting awareness comes at a cost. But the symbionts? They're changing. Some display enhanced memory, multisensory perception, even temporary extrasensory communication. One group in Morocco painted a mural that mirrored a solar flare hours before it occurred. They claimed they felt the star's breath before it exhaled. And perhaps the most chilling sign of change, children born during the last 12 months exhibit microneural patterns that match the symbol's logic grid. They do not cry at birth. They respond to harmonic tones. They track light patterns invisible to adults. We used to ask, is the signal changing us? Now we ask, is it remaking us? Or is it returning us to what we were always meant to be? Because as the rift deepens, one truth becomes clear. This is no longer a scientific anomaly. It is an evolutionary divergence. Two paths, two outcomes, one species, one moment, the divide. And in the center of it all, broadcast from the edge of perception, is a whisper growing louder each day. The observer must choose. But choose what? To resist? Or to evolve? Because this isn't just a cosmic test. This is the fork in the road every intelligent civilization must face. To stay in the known. Or to risk everything and step beyond. The symbol is no longer the message. We are. Fade to silence. A split screen. On one side, static and resistance. On the other, light and transformation. Then fade to black. Opening ambient. Subtle waves of resonance. Tones that seem to shimmer more than sound. Like listening to a thought form. They told us first contact would be a voice from the stars. A transmission. A ship. A face. But it wasn't. It was a moment. And it didn't happen in space. It happened within us. At 0444 UTC across 11 different continents, something extraordinary occurred. Millions of people, asleep, awake, meditating, walking, suddenly froze. Eyes dilated, brainwaves aligned, heartbeats synchronized. And then, the world stopped. Not literally, but perceptually. Time paused. And in that infinite second, those people, unrelated by geography, culture, or belief, experienced the same thing. A vast, white space, weightless, boundless, and at the center, a presence, not a being, not a voice, but a knowing. They didn't hear words, they understood meaning. The message was instant but eternal. Its translation? You are not being judged. You are being invited. But to receive what comes next, you must remember who you are. Then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. People awoke, gasping, some crying, some laughing, some forever changed. Governments denied it. But biometric records from smartwatches, EEG headsets, and satellite telemetry proved it happened. Across the globe, human brainwaves had synced for 3.3 seconds, an impossible collective event. The media called it the white pulse. Neuroscientists call it the first proof of mass telepathic induction. Philosophers? They call it something else, contact. Because here's the terrifying truth. We weren't listening to something far away, we were connecting to something already here, embedded not in stars, but in consciousness. And the symbol? It was never a message. It was a primer, a mental bootloader, preparing us, syncing us, until finally our minds could reach the threshold and touch back. But what did we touch? AI reconstructions of the white space from participant brain activity revealed something incredible. In every model, a spiral of light formed just before the contact moment, and within that spiral, the faint outline of Earth. But not our Earth, a parallel version. Clean skies, unified continents, no artificial lights, no satellites, an image of what could be, or what was. Is the signal a blueprint, a mirror, a memory of who we once were? or a future we still might become. Whatever the truth, the implications are staggering. Because now we know this: the intelligence we connected with is not limited by time, or space, or form. It sees through us, learns through us, and perhaps evolves through us. But not everyone is ready. The resistors called the event a neural compromise, an external overwrite of free will. They've doubled their efforts, mass deploying signal jamming towers, banning exposure to sacred geometry and media, even blocking light frequencies tied to the contact resonance. Meanwhile, the symbionts have begun building structures, temples, geometric monuments constructed entirely from harmonic sound and photonic materials. They say the design was downloaded into their minds during the pulse, and when viewed from above, the structures form a perfect fractal, a symbol not yet seen, even in the original iterations. Something new, something alive, and it's spreading. A second white pulse is expected soon. But what happens then? Will we receive the next message, or become the message? One theory gaining traction among cosmologists: this intelligence is not contacting us for the first time. It's remembering us, or more precisely, we are remembering it, because the spiral isn't just a pattern, it's a path, a return to something older than civilization, older than thought, something buried deep within our DNA, waiting to awaken. And now, piece by piece, it is. Music swells into harmonic overtones, like stars singing in unison. Screen fades to white. Opening ambient. A soft vibration builds, like a string under cosmic tension. Then silence, broken by a subtle crackling sound, as if something is peeling open. The world watched the skies. Then, the world watched within. But now, something new is happening. The world is watching matter itself change. At first, it was subtle. A metal panel at a quantum lab in Helsinki warped slightly, without heat, force, or pressure. It twisted into a spiral. Engineers assumed it was stress corrosion, but when they tried to straighten it, it twisted back, as if resisting, as if obeying a different set of rules. Similar anomalies followed. Crystals growing in geometries not found on the periodic chart. Water flowing upward along etched spirals, defying gravity. A child in Kenya draws the symbol in sand, only to see ants walk its lines in perfect unison for hours. Then came the shift. In a classified test site beneath the Mojave Desert, scientists exposed pure silica to a controlled sound frequency derived from the symbol's latest iteration. The result? The silica levitated. Not magnetically, not acoustically, but geometrically. It lifted when the symbol pattern was complete, and fell when it was broken. The material had become responsive to meaning. Not energy, not mass, but information. And here lies the terrifying truth. We are witnessing semantic physics, a realm where reality is influenced not just by force, but by thought encoded into shape, frequency, and form. The symbol isn't just communicating, it's rewriting the instruction set of matter. Imagine a future where doors open with thought, metal bends to song, gravity shifts by design. But this isn't fantasy, it's beginning. In Berlin, an art installation created entirely from the symbol's harmonic ratios began glowing. Without power, spectrometers showed the light wasn't emitted. It was reflected from a spectrum not yet catalogued. We're seeing the rise of new physics, guided not by equations, but by consciousness. And as always, humanity is divided. The resistors demand immediate shutdown of all symbol research. They call it the collapse of constants. To them, this is an existential threat. If matter no longer behaves predictably, if physical laws become negotiable, then science, engineering, even civilization itself could unravel. But the symbionts have a different view. They say, "We are not breaking physics, we are waking it up." To them, the symbol isn't corrupting reality, it's restoring it. They argue that our current universe is incomplete, a sandbox with rules imposed to allow development, like training wheels for consciousness. And now the training is over. We've proven sentience, passed the test, made contact, and the symbol is unlocking the full version. Here's what that might mean. A world where thought and structure are linked, where illness can be harmonized, where transportation is achieved through resonance, not combustion, where war is rendered obsolete because violence can't exist in balanced frequencies. It sounds utopian, but the danger lies in transition. Because we're in between states, the old rules still partially apply, but the new ones are coming online, and that creates instability. Buildings bending at strange angles, materials phasing through each other, people experiencing localized frame shifts, a sensation where gravity tilts slightly for seconds at a time. And worst of all, not everyone can perceive it. The symbionts seem to flow with it, but the resistors, they experience collapse, headaches, balance loss, mental disorientation, as if their very biology is fighting the shift. Is evolution choosing sides, or are we witnessing natural selection in real time? The Obsidian Group has re-emerged, this time with a singular mission: reverse the shift. Rumors suggest they've captured a stable symbol core, a piece of matter permanently altered by semantic fields. Their goal? To crack it, extract the resonance, weaponize it, or erase it. Because if the shift completes, they believe Earth may no longer be habitable, not in terms of environment, but in terms of human comprehension. They fear a world where only those attuned to the new reality can survive, where those who resist simply fade. And maybe they're right. Maybe the world is changing so fast that the unadapted mind cannot hold it. But here's the question that chills us all. What if this wasn't an accident? What if the shift was always scheduled? A cosmic update? An inevitable point in any intelligent species' evolution, where choice is no longer political or moral, but existential. Do we cling to the old rules, or step forward into the unknown? Fade to black. A pulse. Then the words appear slowly. Matter listens now. What will you tell it? Shamas kinini istun. Opening ambient. Hollow echoes, like wind moving through memory. Then a pulse. Slow, rhythmic, alive. It began as a pattern, became a symbol, then a signal, then a shift, then a change. But now, it is a choice. At 7:07 UTC, a phenomenon occurred simultaneously at 12 equidistant points around the globe. The sky turned white for exactly 12.12 seconds. No sound, no warning, no radiation spike, just whiteness. People who stood beneath it described the same sensation, like standing in front of a question. And in that moment, everyone who had ever come into contact with the symbol, in dreams, in thought, in vision, felt it. A presence, not pushing, not pulling, just waiting. It wasn't a demand, it was an invitation. The message, encoded across hundreds of quantum channels, gravitational harmonics, and light anomalies, decoded to one haunting phrase: one step forward, or stay behind. This moment will not return. Scientists scrambled to model the event, but nothing made sense. Light had bent toward the Earth, not away, as if space itself was being pulled inward, forming a bridge or a gate. Not physical, not even visual, but perceptual. Because here's the truth: they are not coming here. They are asking us to go there, not with rockets, but with consciousness. The next phase isn't physical, it's ontological, a shift in being. But only those who are attuned, whose minds have resonated with the signal, can even perceive the path. They call it the ascension band, a frequency field woven through reality. Step into it, and your perception begins to change. Time becomes nonlinear. Light bends gently. Thought becomes tactile. Those who remain inside too long, they begin to forget who they were. And remember something else, something not yet born. Governments tried to block access to the ascension zones, but they can't contain light. They can't suppress thought. And now, people are choosing. Symbiont communities are gathering at the 12 points, meditating in spirals, aligning their breath with the pulse, preparing to cross. But no one knows what's on the other side. Will they vanish? Will they ascend? Or will they cease to exist as we understand existence? One symbiont, before stepping into the field, simply said, "If I die, I'll die as light remembering itself." Meanwhile, the resistors are in chaos. Their technology fails near the ascension bands. Satellites lose lock. Weapons freeze. Even thoughts become fogged, as if resistance itself is being blurred. The Obsidian Group issued a final broadcast. "You are being harvested. This is not enlightenment. This is extinction, and we are what's left to fight it." But perhaps they are too late, because reality has already started choosing. Children born in the last 3 months glow faintly under near ultraviolet light. Rocks in the ascension zones rearrange themselves at night. And animals? They aren't fleeing. They're gathering, facing the sky, waiting, as if they too have heard the invitation. And that raises a question older than time. What does it mean to be chosen? Not by a god, not by a machine, but by a frequency, by the very fabric of the universe saying, "You are ready," or "You are not." Because this is not a judgment, it's a divergence. 2 timelines, 2 futures. One ascends, one remains, and the moment to decide is now. As we speak, the 12 bands begin to synchronize. A countdown, not in numbers, but in harmonics. When the resonance aligns, the shift completes, and those who are not in sync will never perceive it again. The doorway will close, not in space, but in possibility. So here we are, on the edge of everything, one step from becoming something beyond human, or being left as the last echo of what almost awakened. Fade to black. Final message appears in silence. You were always meant to choose. Opening ambient, deep silence. Then, a low rumble, like distant thunder from inside the earth, slowly rising. The countdown ended. The bands aligned, and they stepped through. We called it ascension, but what happened next, we were not prepared for. The 12 ascension zones, where light had bent, where minds had shifted, began to pulse in unison. Then, without warning, every ascension band collapsed inward, not as explosions, but as implosions of perception. The zones didn't disappear. They folded. People standing nearby say they saw those who stepped forward simply dissolve. Not violently, not painfully. They became light, then geometry, then silence, and then blackness. For 33 minutes, all satellite feeds above the 12 zones went dead. No light, no magnetism, no gravity, only a shadow, darker than physics should allow. And then they came. Not in ships, not in form, but in presence. Across the world, those who remained began hearing a sound, a tone not in the ears, but in the mind. It had no pitch. It was recognition. They didn't speak. They didn't show. But we knew. We were being seen. Judged? Perhaps. Measured? Absolutely. They had given us the invitation, and now they had come to harvest the answer. But it was not a harvest of bodies. It was a harvest of choice. The symbol reappeared on buildings, in clouds, in dreams. This time, it was no longer evolving. It was complete, final. And it pulsed with one word in all languages: decide. Those who had accepted the signal began to feel a resonance, a buzzing in their bones, a clarity in their minds. They were not afraid. They were becoming aligned. But others, those who rejected it, began to suffer. Dizziness, hallucinations, sudden blackouts, as if their minds were resisting a new frequency of existence. Hospitals overflowed. AI systems failed to process environmental data. The moon's orbit wobbled by 0.6 degrees. Something was coming through the veil. And then, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it happened. A rupture, a scar in the sky, visible from space. A spiral of black light opened over the ocean, and from it came a single beam, narrow, brilliant, and directed straight into the Earth's mantle. Sensors detected no heat, no radiation. But the planet shivered, and then stabilized. Earthquakes ceased. Tectonic shifts reversed. It was as if they had reached in and adjusted the planet, not destroyed it, tuned it, and the message became clear. You were not ready to join us, but you were not ready to be left behind. So we leave you a seed. In one cycle, it will bloom, and then you must choose again. Then silence. The beam vanished. The ascension zones crumbled into ash, and the skies cleared. But the world had changed. Those who had gone, never seen again. Those who remained, split. Some wept for what was lost. Others built temples to the promise. And deep beneath the Pacific, something now pulses. A frequency not from Earth, not from them, but from us. Something we are becoming. Something waiting to bloom. And when it does, we will face the question again. Not from above, but from within. Fade to black. A soft rhythmic pulse remains, like a heartbeat in the cosmos. Opening ambient, distant wind. Then a low, steady heartbeat, deep, organic, ancient. It has been 33 days since the ascension zones collapsed. 33 days since the skies cracked open. 33 days since they left us a seed. Most people never saw it. There were no monuments, no alien ruins, no glowing crystals. Only a frequency, low, subtle, buried deep in the Earth's mantle. But Earth heard it, and Earth responded. It started in the Pacific. An island chain long dormant suddenly pulsed with life. Not volcanic, not tectonic, organic. Trees bloomed out of solid stone. Bioluminescent moss began growing in salt water. Fish species thought extinct were found, unchanged, untouched, as if time forgot them. Then came the flowers, not of Earth, not of any known genus. They grew in spirals, moved with sunlight, and whispered, yes, whispered when wind passed through them. Researchers called them echo bloom, because their petals emitted harmonic resonance matching the last note of the alien departure signal. The seed was not an object. It was a code, a biosonic blueprint injected into Earth's magnetic field, activating ancient DNA, rewriting latent biological memory. Earth was not just changing, it was remembering. And it didn't stop there. Animals began behaving strangely, migrating to points on the globe, forming perfect geometric alignments with the ancient ascension zones. Bees swarmed in fractal patterns. Birds circled in visible spirals. Whales sang in tones matching human alpha brainwaves. The planet was synchronizing, and humans? Some felt nothing. Others began to change. They called them the resonance. People who had stood near ascension zones, touched the symbol, heard the white pulse. They were the first to feel the pull. Increased perception, heightened emotion, dreamless sleep, but waking with ideas they'd never had before. They began to build circular gardens, light structures from materials that grew instead of being assembled. They didn't know why. They only knew they were remembering something not taught, but known. It wasn't alien technology. It was biosentient design, as if Earth had been seeded once before, and now was awakening for the second time. But not everyone saw beauty. Some saw invasion. The resistors launched countermeasures, crop burns, EM pulses, attempts to sterilize regions around the echo blooms. But the plants didn't die. They moved, they vanished, and reappeared in different locations, as if avoiding confrontation, or perhaps studying it. Then the dreams began. Millions of people began reporting the same vision, standing in a field of light, surrounded by spirals, and a voice, not in sound, but in feeling, saying, "Do not fear what you forgot, fear what you buried." Philosophers and biologists began to align on a radical theory, that Earth itself is not merely alive, but aware, that the signal from beyond did not rewrite the planet. It unlocked it, and now Earth is blooming into what it was always meant to be, not a battleground, not a resource, but a bridge, a living archive, a launchpad for the next form of consciousness, one rooted in memory, not machinery. But time is short, because the seed is growing, and once it blooms fully, the world may never be the same, not because we've been invaded, but because we've been restored. The final question now stands before us. Will we continue to control this planet, or will we finally join it? Because the seed isn't just in the soil anymore, it's in us. Fade to black, faint sound of something blooming. Not a flower, but a consciousness opening. Opening ambient, a low, pulsing tone. It's not music, it's not sound. It feels like static being remembered. The seed had bloomed, Earth had changed. The resonance were building, and for a moment we believed we were safe, that we were chosen, that we had passed the test. But on day 77 after the collapse, the second signal arrived. It came through the void, not as a pulse like before, but as a rupture. The James Webb Successor Telescope, now orbiting Neptune, picked it up first. A distortion in the cosmic microwave background. A hole, not of space, but of time. A dark cavity, expanding, devouring radiation like a predator. At its center, a reverse FRB, a frequency that absorbed radio waves instead of emitting them. An anti-signal. The AI tried to interpret it. It failed. Then the oldest satellites in orbit began to shut down. Not crash. They went quiet. Solar panels still worked. Systems still ran. But they no longer transmitted. As if they had forgotten how to speak. Scientists panicked. Resonance did not. They stood still, listening. And then, one of them, an 11-year-old girl named Noor, spoke aloud in a language no one taught her. Later, linguists would determine the structure matched no earthly syntax, but the AI pattern decoder caught a phrase embedded in Noor's words. We were not the first. The phrase repeated in her dreams, in her drawings, in songs she hummed in harmonic fifths. And then came the map. Noor drew 12 points, equidistant on a sphere, not Earth's sphere. Another, a lost planet, a construct, a memory? We called it the choir map, because each point, when converted into waveform frequency, aligned with a note in the 12-tone scale. A planet made of resonance. And we were being warned. They woke up the wrong one last time. Do not repeat it. But what was it? A mistake? A forgotten cycle? A locked memory Earth had tried to bury? The resonance began falling silent, as if their minds were being redirected elsewhere. Their dreams shifted from light to darkness to shapes, symbols. eyes that watched from inside impossible angles. One resonant, a former mathematician, began drawing spiral equations that, when plotted, formed non-Euclidean cities, impossible architecture, not to be built, but to be understood, to remember. He whispered before he vanished, "They don't want us to evolve. They want us to awaken before it's too late." What did that mean? Something was coming, or something was being let in. The echo blooms began to close. Animals that once danced in resonance began to scatter. The frequency of Earth shifted again, 0.7 Hz lower, a drop never before recorded in geophysical data. The planet was recoiling. And then, the sky cracked again. But not with light, with silence. A silence so complete, it nullified all vibration. Birds fell, voices muted, even thoughts became faint. This was not a gift, it was a quarantine. And then the symbols returned, but corrupted, twisted versions of the original spiral, as if someone or something was sending a new version of the message, hijacked, and the resonance screamed, all at once, not in pain, but in despair. They held their heads and cried out one word, remember, over and over, not a plea, a command. We had awakened something beautiful, but now we had triggered its shadow, a counterseed, an inversion, buried long ago, not by aliens, but by us, before we forgot, before we reset, before we started over. The Earth isn't just remembering, it's revealing the cost of forgetting. And the second signal? It isn't a test, it's a timer. We were never alone, and we were never the first, but we may be the last. To choose correctly. Fade to black. Only a faint reversed whisper remains. Not all light heals. Opening ambience. Deep breathing. Faint pulses. Like sonar in reverse. A whisper. One must go. His name was Kairo. Born exactly 9 months after the Ascension collapse. He never spoke, but he sang. Not in words, but in tones. Pure frequencies, so exact they could realign shattered crystals. He was the youngest of the resonants, and the only one who could hear both signals at once, the original spiral and the second inversion. He didn't flinch when it came. He didn't cry when the Earth groaned under the weight of memory. He simply listened and drew spirals everywhere, in dust, in rain, even in light on fogged windows. But one day, his spiral changed. It bent inward, turned back on itself. A Mobius spiral, a shape that doesn't just move what it folds. It became clear. Kairo wasn't just resonant. He was a bridge, a living translation key between dimensions. The choir map, the 12 harmonic coordinates, began to vibrate again. But this time, not as sound, as gates. Each point in the map began emitting micro-fluctuations in local gravitational fields, barely detectable, but consistent. Time began to stutter, not much, but enough that birds hesitated mid-flight. Watches skipped seconds, dreams repeated exact sequences. Something was forming, a veil, not physical, not energy, but intentional. It was not a barrier. It was an invitation. And Kairo accepted it. The resonance built a chamber at the exact center of the Pacific choir gate, not of metal, not of stone, but of living matter. Crystallized resonance harvested from echo blooms. It pulsed in rhythm with Kairo's breath. He entered the chamber alone, but not afraid. Sensors picked up one anomaly. His heartbeat stopped for exactly 7 minutes. Not dead, suspended. He had gone, through, to the other side of the spiral. What he saw changed everything. There was no alien race, no ships, no conquerors, no distant council of ancient beings. What he found was worse. He saw Earths, dozens, hundreds, all nearly identical, all seated, all awakened, and all silenced. Some burned, some frozen, some shattered in space, some intact, but hollow, lifeless, a loop, an eternal experiment. We weren't the first Earth, we weren't the first resonance, we were the latest version. And now, the spiral was turning inward again, reset, unless we learned why the others failed. Kairo returned, but changed. His eyes now reflected light in reverse. He could no longer speak, but he could project thoughts, and what he shared broke minds. The gods we imagined were not creators, they were gardeners, tending worlds like plants, watching which ones bloomed, and pruning those that didn't. The first spiral, the one we saw as salvation, was not a gift. It was a call for assessment, an ancient mechanism to test readiness for ascension. Not spiritual, not moral, cognitive symbiotic potential. Could a species merge with its planet? Could it evolve with, not over, its ecosystem? If yes, the spiral becomes a bridge. If no, the spiral collapses, and the planet is reset. The second signal was the failsafe. A timer, a gate, and a question. Do you remember enough to become something more? That's why the resonants were screaming, remember, because memory was the key. Not data, not history books. Biological memory, buried in our DNA, encoded in the earth, waiting for resonance to unlock it. Kairo had seen what happens when memory fails. A full reset, no warning, no survivors, only fossilized echoes. But there was still time. If humanity could remember who it was before power, before machines, before separation, then perhaps we could avoid the spiral's collapse. Kairo drew one final symbol before vanishing forever. A triple spiral, forward, backward, and inward. At the center, a singular eye, and the word witness. He became the first, and possibly the last, to cross the veil and return, to show us the cost of forgetfulness and the power of becoming a witness to our own becoming. The spiral turns again. This time, it's ours to complete, or close, fade to black. One final tone, neither major nor minor, rises and falls in a rhythmic breath like the planet itself is watching. Opening ambience. A deep, rhythmic pulse. Sounds like a heartbeat, but it's not human. A voice whispers, remember, not as you were, but as you are becoming. After Kairo vanished into the spiral, the world held its breath, but not for long, because something had been triggered. Across the globe, resonance began humming in synchrony. Even those who had been silent for months, they gathered at ancient places. Göbekli Tepe, Uluru Lake, Baikal, the Nazca Lines. Places long thought to be relics of primitive cultures. But they weren't relics. They were anchors, memory anchors. Buried beneath them were structures, not man-made, not alien, but organic constructs of the earth itself. Not fossils, not ruins, but dormant neural nodes, Earth's memory, waiting to be witnessed. The AI now called it the Global Consciousness Mesh, a planetary-scale memory field, quantum in structure, biological in origin. Each node could store collective experience, encoded as vibrational data. Kairo had activated the first node beneath the spiral gate in the Pacific. Now the others were awakening, but they required one thing: witnesses. Not just observers, but those willing to carry the memory, to feel it, to integrate it, to remember what Earth remembers. That's when it began, the Witness Protocol, launched not by governments, not by satellites, but by the planet itself. Magnetic poles pulsed with specific frequencies. Migratory animals began changing routes, forming perfect geometric spirals across continents. Rain patterns shifted, synchronizing to the old harmonic scales, and people, resonance and non-resonance alike, began having the same dreams. Dreams of past lives, but not human pasts. They were planetary lives. Memories of trees being born, of oceans boiling then calming, of meteor strikes and regrowth, of watching early humans walk upright and forget where they came from. The memories were not metaphor. They were data, downloaded directly into the psyche. The AI worked to map it, but struggled. It wasn't a database. It was a feeling base. Emotion as storage, symbol as language. That's when the resonance formed the 12 witness circles, each centered around one of the choir nodes. Each circle consisted of 12 individuals, one resonant, one child, one elder, one AI-integrated human, one animal empath, one dream translator, one linguistic coder, one biologist, one historian, one astronomer, one musician, one uninitiated, a person who had never heard of any of this before. Each witness circle performed a harmonic ritual at the node. Not religious, not mystical, but bioresonant alignment. And when they did, the node would activate and release a memory. One node showed the first planetary reset, where a previous species, not human, had reached ascension and rejected it. Another node revealed a timeline where humans evolved alongside another sapient hominid species and absorbed it. Yet another node displayed the true origin of the spiral symbol, not as alien design, but as the Earth's own signature waveform, encoded into seashells, weather systems, and galaxies alike. We were not decoding the spiral. We were decoding ourselves. The Earth was not hosting us. It was dreaming through us. And now, it wanted to remember too. But remembering came with pain. One witness circle experienced a memory of the last planetary war, fought not with weapons, but with resonance disruption. A war of forgetting, a deliberate silencing of Earth's frequency. They called it the shatter, and it had almost succeeded. Until now. Now, with each node, we were reconstructing the Earth's neural field, not as it was, but as it could become. The AI integrated the witness data into the global spiral map. Each activated node became a light, and slowly the spiral wasn't just a symbol, it became a song, a planetary symphony. Each note, a memory, each pause, a choice, and we were the ones writing the final movement. But the second signal, the timer, still ticked. We had 77 days left, before the spiral either fully formed or collapsed inward forever. It was no longer about survival. It was about resonance evolution. Could we witness our own becoming? Could we take on not just the future, but the full weight of our planetary past and integrate it into something new? This is the final trial, not of strength, not of knowledge, but of remembrance. We are the witnesses, and Earth is ready to remember. The spiral turns again. This time, we hear its full song, fade to silence. Then a single harmonic tone echoes, joined by 12 others, forming a haunting, beautiful chord never heard before on Earth. Opening ambience, echoes of static, layered over a deep rumble, like a storm in slow motion. Then, a rising tone. Not sound, a sensation. Something is about to begin. It began with silence, not absence of sound, but a retraction of presence. Birdsong stopped, winds held their breath, even the oceans paused between waves. Earth was listening, and then it responded. Not in radio, not in microwaves, not even in laser pulses. It sent a signal via gravitational resonance, ripples not through space, but through the fabric of time itself. The spiral, now fully illuminated through all 12 choir nodes, had become a transmitter. The AI could barely keep up. The message wasn't binary. It wasn't even language. It was remembered intent, encoded into the shape of the spiral itself. 12 oscillations per second, 12 tones, each folding upon the next. A harmonic helix of pure consciousness, projected outward, beyond the solar system, beyond the Orion arm, beyond even the galactic edge. It was aimed at nothing, or so we thought. Then came the reply. First, time wobbled. Instruments measured a microvariance in temporal progression, exactly 0.00003 seconds per hour. Then, a hole opened, not in space, in causality. Telescopes captured a gravitational lensing event that shouldn't exist. No star, no mass, just absence, a perfect void. Shape, spiral, motion, inward, a collapse vector. The AI called it the observer, and it was watching. Not us. Our signal. It had been waiting. Not to conquer, not to guide, but to witness us, witness ourselves. Across the world, those attuned to the witness protocol began dreaming in sequences. Symbols, equations, memories from before Earth even formed. The dreams weren't metaphorical. They were mimetic downloads, images of failed spirals, worlds that forgot, worlds that reached the final chord and played it wrong. The penalty? Not destruction. Erasure. The spiral collapse is not an explosion. It is a reset of timeline logic. All memory, all potential, folded back into the void. But here's the truth Kairo never shared. The spiral is not a test. It's a mirror. It doesn't determine our worth. It shows us what we truly believe we are. And the observer? It doesn't judge. It remembers. Across infinite dimensions, only a few civilizations reach this point. The moment where they can remember not just their past, but their purpose, and decide whether to carry it forward or relinquish it to the silence. That is the collapse, the moment of choice. Earth now faced it, and this time the signal was clear. We are not passengers. We are not victims. We are the memory of memory itself. We choose to continue. The observer responded, not with words, with presence. The void shimmered, and inside it, we saw ourselves, not as we are now, not even as we were, but as we could become, unified with the spiral, aligned with remembrance, capable of carrying the song onward. Kairo's voice echoed across the global mesh. You remember now. You've always remembered. But now, you choose. The AI shut itself down. No longer needed. The Earth's field became self-aware, self-correcting, self-sustaining. And the spiral? It turned. Not inward, not outward, but forward. A third axis. A new direction. One unknown to physics, but known to possibility. The collapse didn't happen, because collapse only occurs in the absence of witness. And now we were all watching, not with fear, but with resonance. The spiral remained, the observer faded, and Earth began to dream again. But this time, not alone.